Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. My regular guest, Rishab Skiri from the YouTube's DaWindyCity Production channel, unfortunately, is stuck, I think, on his way back from work tonight. He's about maybe 20, 30 minutes. So, there are strong chances that, Rashad might not be joining us, and maybe we'll have to do another one with him next week or sometimes the week after, close to the draft. But as promised, joining us tonight, thank God, we had a backup plan for Rashab, is somebody we've had in the past. It's been a long time since I had this gentleman on my live stream. Previously, it is a high school coach himself. It is up in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. It is Nick Whalen. You can follow him on Twitter at _Nick Whalen. Nick, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Thank God you were kind enough to join me on the day before. We were coordinating since, I figure not that no one can actually predict, accidents of this kind. But thank you very much for joining me tonight. How you been?
Yeah. No. Thanks for having me. And since he's not here, I'll take a moment to trash talk him. We don't know if him not being here is real or not, or he's avoiding me because I just beat him in our NCAA College Football 25 National Championship game. He said he wanted to talk about it on here, but maybe the hurt is too big right now. He can't be the
Good. So now, being a high school football coach right now, how many years have you been a football coach, and what is the off season like for you, at this period of time, since, the practice hasn't really kicked up, and what is it that you normally do when you're not coaching at this time of the year?
Yeah. So let's see. It's been 15 years coaching. I've done some college and then some high school. Just got done with. I do off-season weight room with the players. Which again, the off-season is really when you build your capacity to kind of get stronger, and then that's going to continue in the summer, and then also with some speed. Some balance, some cutting ability, and then during the season, honestly, you're just trying to maintain that. So really, right now for them, it's just getting bigger, faster, stronger, and then coaching wise, it's clinics. We're talking about what schemes we want to run because you have a feel for the new team you're going to have. It's not like the Bears, right, where we're going to acquire more talent. It's just going to be we know what we have, and so whether we're going to change schemes, coaches are going to come back, things like that. So we're just tweaking that kind of stuff right now.
Oh, outstanding. Do you see like a significant growth of the players, regardless of their year class, that you see like a significant development or growth in that at this time of the year?
Oh yeah. I think a lot. Well, to be honest, Stephen, it depends on their work ethic. I mean, some guys some of them actually they improve a lot more from a freshman, sophomore to a junior, and then sometimes as a senior, maybe they're going to get lazy or they want to have a job and they don't see the growth. They don't have the ambition as much, and then some of them see themselves as a leader and they have to kind of pull guys along, the younger guys, and so we kind of have some of both. In fact, one of them I think is a lineman. I won't name his name, but a lineman that I feel has had a lot of growth in the weight room, and he's in there all the time. He's asking questions. He's having me spot him and trying to go for higher weights, I think, than he really can. But that builds more of his capacity and his mental, that he's really challenging himself, which you're going to see every play, every game in the field. You're going to have those challenges. And so I'm liking that he's trying to meet that, that level of competitiveness in the weight room.
All right, now let's get to the meat and bone of our conversation tonight. Obviously, the NFL draft, which is obviously happening in your neck of the woods, in Green Bay, Wisconsin. How far do you live from Green Bay to where do you live? Madison?
Yeah, I'm Madison suburb. I'd say I'm probably two hours, maybe 2.5 hours from Green Bay.
Okay.
Depending on traffic or so. I won't be attending. I halfway thought about it. Rishab actually asked me. I don't know if he's actually
Rishab is I think going there with Philip Charles Van.
Yeah, Philip. Yeah. Both of them asked me. I'm going to be covering some live podcast coverage and then some reactions with the Bear Report. That's where our the Hallis Beat is housed in terms of YouTube and podcast content.
Okay, what has been the level of excitement? Ever since the Green Bay was awarded the NFL draft, and as it gets closer and closer, what are you hearing and how the people's local natives are reacting to it?
Just the Packer fans, I feel like have this we're always going to be okay type of mindset. But you look, I mean, they did not add a ton. I thought they overspent for Aaron Banks and for Nate Hobbs. Christian Watson towards ACL. He's going to miss at least half, if not all of next year. So he's their deep threat. And they underachieved last year. And whether that's really who they are or they overachieved the year before, but they went 1-5 in the division, just like Chicago. And they weren't really close, I didn't think, in the playoffs. So to me, call me biased as a Bears fan. I feel like Green Bay's fighting for third or fourth in the division. I just don't feel like they're close enough to Detroit, Minnesota, and we'll see how Chicago does.
All right, let's kind of start looking into the Bears offseason. The free agency is long way past in the mirror, and now we're focused pretty much on the NFL, which unbelievable that it is 2 weeks from tonight. And hard to believe, but let's kind of look at the free agency. I want your football, coach, scout hat on. Free agency wise, overall, do you like what the Bears did on both sides of the football?
Some yes, some no.
Okay.
So I expected them to actually go bigger with their offensive line because I was thinking, Ben Johnson wants to have the bigger lineman, which is what he had in Detroit. And we didn't really go big. I mean, Jonah Jackson is the biggest one. Drew Dahlman's smaller. Joe Tooney's smaller, although, I mean, I'm not going to argue with an all-pro. So to me, I think they're going to switch more of instead of gap scheme, which is a little bit more, think of like downhill running, power running. They're going to do a lot more zone, wide zone, outside zone. Split zone type of a running attack, which is what Drew Dahlman does really well at. So that was a little surprised at. Not that I hate it. Drew Dahlman, I don't think they necessarily overpaid. I don't think they underpaid for him. I didn't think a center was as huge of a need as the rest of the fan base because everyone's freaking out. On our podcast on the Hallis Beat, I called Bears fans. I think they have PTSD with the O-line, Steven. It was like, he's like, okay, we have to fix the O-line. So then they trade for Jonah Jackson. They trade for Joe Tooney. They're like, okay, we have to sign Drew Dahlman, right? They get him. And now I feel it's like, we have to get a left tackle. And it's like, well, I mean, you can't have all pros or first round picks at every position, So I thought that was kind of interesting. The one move I love Grady Jarrett, by the way. Love that move. Dayo Odangbo, I'm a little up in the air about. He fits the size threshold. They didn't necessarily spend a ton on him. It was a solid amount. But I don't know what they're going to get from him in terms of a pass rusher. I think he's a solid player, but I think he's a step above DeMarcus Walker. I know he's younger, but I just don't know that the ceiling's very high for him.
Are you talking about Odangbo?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right, let's look at the offensive line. You were obviously talking about gap scheme versus the zone scheme. Kind of explain it to me. So the gap is like you run between the tackles, between the gaps of the tackles and the guard or whatever the hole is available versus on the wide zone scheme. Is it kind of like more suited for like players who go outside and just follow the tackles more or less? Or is there a little more intricacy into that?
No. Let's so gap scheme. You're thinking of more powerful guys because you're trying to physically move someone north and south, if that makes sense. Okay. And zone scheme can still run between the tackles, but most of the time there's inside zone, but outside zone or wide zone, the aiming point of the back is a little bit wider. And you're trying to make D linemen, their first or a couple initial steps is going to be east and west, and then you hit north and south. So a lot of guys aren't as accustomed to, okay, I got to go sideways and then I got to go north and south. So getting guys running east and west can open up different types of gaps. And so you're going to have runners are different as well. In my opinion, it's easier for a running back to read gap scheme because you're just reading one block and cutting off of one thing.
Right. Just go and hit the hole and just go.
Yep. Yeah, you're going right here. But then zone scheme, you're having to read the D line, and there might be a couple different D linemen in the block that your O lineman has on him and the backers. So actually, I was just watching some film of Caleb Johnson, who I think is better in a zone scheme. I'm not a huge fan of him, but he's a better in that zone scheme fit than I would say like a Trevion Henderson. I feel like he doesn't have as good of a feel or in terms of vision, decision making, and then his eyes balance and cutting off of that.
Now looking at the defense right now, Grady Jarrett on defense right now. The Bears managed to add Dayo Odeyingbo on defense. There is still a little bit of a need on the defensive side right now. I know Dennis Allen, seems to like a bigger edge rusher or bigger defensive lineman. Whereas inside defensive linemen, I think you could kind of like get away with a little smallish guys like 6'1", 6'2"-ish guys. What kind of a defense do you think Dennis Allen will be running? And then how much do you think of the adjustment period that the Bears will likely to go through with Allen calling the shots on defense?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's interesting because you look at what he's done before. He said with both the Raiders and with the Saints.
Denver Saints as well, yes.
And he had Cam Jordan, which actually I had a tweet where if you look at Cam Jordan's measurables, it's very close to Dayo Odeyingbo's measurables in terms of length, size, etc. But then also they had Marcus Davenport was a big D end. Trey Hendrickson is a big D end who they had. So I think they're a little bit more of, you think of like pocket pushers. And what's interesting now, and they had a Grady Jarrett and they had Omar Norman Lott in for a visit at one of the top 30 visits. The NFL is changing a little bit, Stephen, in terms of, with the two high safeties, right? And teams kind of have some different schemes. They're having like those simulated pressures where they're going to show one side, but then they're going to bring pressure on another side. They're trying to kind of trick offenses, and offenses get the ball out really quick. And so I think actually the need for these DNs that are like edge rushers, speed rushers, they don't have enough time to get to the quarterback all the time because they get the ball off so quick and there's RPOs, like there's all these things. I think that actually that interior pressure, you talked about Grady Jarrett, we got Jervon Dexter, Andrew Billings, that interior pressure and even blitzing linebackers up the middle, I think is almost more valued right now in today's game versus those outside guys, as we saw Montez Sweat had a dip in sacks this past year.
So it seems as though people focus a lot on Allen's, wanting the certain defensive lineman to be a certain size, certain length, or certain, height or whatever. I kind of look back at when he was coaching the Raiders back in when he was, I think, 2014. I think that was, unfortunately, the year he got fired. That was also the year that they drafted Khalil Mack in the first round, which certainly does not fit the traditional mold of, the type of defensive lineman that, Khalil Mack, that Allen usually wants. My question is, was Khalil Mack an outlier because he was that good, or because, Allen is a good coach that he can, certainly find a way to work with, somebody like Abdul Carter or maybe even Mike Greens of the world, which obviously doesn't have the biggest size in the world, edge rushers. And, do you think he would be able to work with that here in Chicago, or is that that's not unlikely to see with the Bears?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, Stephen. And I think to answer the first one, I think, Khalil Mack was just an animal out of Buffalo.
Yeah.
He was so good, and he was so big, and he was so strong too. And honestly, and this is gonna come off a little, I don't know, maybe a little crazy to some people. Abdul Carter is a fantastic athlete, great pass rusher. I feel like Mike Green is a little bit more of a well-rounded player right now. He's a little bit older, but I feel like if you get one of those guys, and again, this is just personally, I would want a more well-rounded defensive line room, and the reason being is that a lot of people, they're like, well, they had signed Dio Odengbo, they don't need to sign or draft another D end. Well, you rotate D ends, you rotate D tackles. Think of the Eagles, right? It's almost like a hockey line change all the time because they play, between 40 and 65% of the snaps, most of the guys, and so the O line, they stay out there all the time. So you rotate all the time to keep them fresh, injuries, poor play. Like you want to have backups. So if I'm thinking this, Steven, you have Montez and Dio, huge DNs. Austin Booker, I'm not giving up on him, right? But I think I would want almost a smaller guy just to mix up in terms of, because think of it like with baseball, right? You don't want all right-handed hitters. You want some guys that are contact guys, some guys that are power guys. Like same with your pitching rotation. So I would think you'd want to have one guy who could be a designated pass rusher or can penetrate a little bit differently than your pocket pusher. So in my mind, I mean, Abdul Carter's gone unless they trade up. I really like Mike Green's film. I think Mike Green can hold up against the run, which is Austin Booker's nemesis. And he has his initial moves, right? His pass rush moves, but then he has counters off of those, which is what you need. That's that complete player that I'm thinking of, because the NFL isn't always what you want to have happen. Think of like Caleb's first read. It's okay if your first read isn't there. Now what? That's kind of what makes your really good players. And so having those counters or offensive linemen being able to recover off of a missed kind of punch and blocking your guy, that's what makes, I think, your good players great. And I think Mike Green has some of that. I would love if they had him in Chicago. Now, again, the off the field stuff, I've heard he hasn't been charged with anything. I think the Bears are going to investigate and figure that stuff out. But I think in terms of having a complete room, I think Mike Green would be a fantastic addition.
When I look at a guy like Mike Green, he certainly seems to have the traits of a very good pass rusher. Certainly, 6'2", 6'2" and a half, 250, close to it. He really broke out of the scene last year. Led the nation in sacks. Has a tremendous bull rush. Sometimes he can really come off the edge really quickly and wreak havoc in the backfield. What other defensive linemen do you think that the Bears could be looking at? There are certain a lot of names being mentioned there: Shamar Stewart, James Pierce, Nick Scourton, just to name a few. Bradley Swinton, I believe that's his name, from LSU. He's getting a lot of love out in the scouting world right now. What other edge rushers do you think that the Bears could be looking at that caught your eye and say, yeah, that guy will be a beast in the Dennis Allen defense?
Yeah. And one of the things I like about Mike Green too is his 3-cone was one of the best. Among NFL, any guys in the league, it was phenomenal 3-cone drill. And one of the things too, I think this gets into the O-line prospects as well as D-line prospects is arm length, right? Because that and people don't think of this. So arm length for O-linemen is going to be kind of straight out. And then what D-linemen do a lot is they do one arm. If people, so what you're doing is you're hitting here and you're getting your chest away. And so that kind of makes your arm a little bit longer if you can lean away. So you see that technique all the time. So you look at someone like you mentioned, Shamar Stewart, he's 34 and 3/8 inch arm length versus someone like Abdul Carter's 33 and Mike Green's 32 and 3/8, et cetera. So if they wanted to have a complete room and have a smaller type of guy, there's actually a few. So we mentioned Mike Green enough. Jalen Walker, some call him an edge, some call him an off-ball linebacker. I like him actually better probably at edge than off-ball linebacker, but I just don't know. It's a projection because he hasn't played a lot. He's only started 1 year, but he doesn't have a ton of snaps as an edge.
Right, and he's not bigger either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He's let me look here. He's 6'1", 243.
250-ish, close to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like Donovan Ezeraku quite a bit. I think
Yeah.
he's got really good hands. He's got a lot
35-inch
of
arms too, I think.
yeah. Let me look here. Yeah, 34. Yeah, you're right. So, but he's also smaller. So do you value arm length? Do you value weight? That's a thing. James Pierce Jr. is just falling down draft boards, and I know there's the character things going on out there.
Yes.
He's 33-inch arms, good athlete. But is he going to be a good teammate and work ethic? That's part of it. You mentioned Nick Scorton, and Braden Swinson. Yeah, they're not bad. And if you want to go like smaller guys, there's also like Josiah Stewart, but I think Josiah Stewart is like maybe a pure 3-4 outside linebacker. Yeah, there's definitely a few there. I struggle because you either have smaller guys or you have big guys with no production. Shamar Stewart's production is terrible. You watch his tape, the best plays you can see a pocket pusher, you can see a guy almost make plays, but I like the saying, Steven, if you don't bite as a puppy, you're not going to bite as a dog. So I don't know that we're going to see him finish plays in the league when you couldn't finish them against, the SEC. But the same thing with Michael Williams. Michael Williams couldn't, get the production. I know there's some injuries there. Landon Jackson, I like late, maybe second round. He's big, but he has 2 ACL injuries. So there's not really a complete guy that I like that has no flaws. I mean, it's the 10th pick. There's going to be guys with flaws, but I would prefer they go with, one of these smaller guys because that's better than and having production versus a big guy that has no production.
So Mike Green at 10 wouldn't be like a shocker for you then.
Nope, I like him. He's worth it. I mean, as long as the character stuff checks out, but I think you're going to have a guy that helps you 2025, not a guy that you hope can become something else. You have a pretty finished product, in my opinion.
Well, it's still room to grow and get better and everything. Yep. Okay. Now, defensive tackle is the one that's also probably a little bit of a need right now because you have. Let's start with Javon Dexter. He came up in the facility yesterday or 2 days ago. He looked like a completely different player. He looked slimmed down.
He did.
Down to maybe about 280-ish right now. What kind of a player do you think Javon Dexter can be in Allen's system, and what position do you think he will be playing? Probably more of an end guy because of how he looks right now.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I mean, well, okay, first off, let's talk about the other two to start with. So Andrew Billings is more of a one technique. And so to describe that one, we have so one technique is going to be just one shade, like one shoulder or one half of the center. That's one. And then 2I is going to be inside, one shoulder of the guard. Straight up on the guard is 2, outside shoulder of the guard is 3. So people are trying to figure it out. And what you're trying to do is there's always gap defense. People are responsible for things.
Right.
So your one technique is likely double teamed. You want him a little bit bigger. So Andrew Billings fits that spot. Grady Jarrett is more of your 3 technique. He's your slasher penetrator type. So I think Javon Dexter can play both. If he slims up, he's likely a 3 technique. If he slims up more, as you're saying, I don't know what the weight would be. He could be that third D end that we're looking for. That's going to be the pocket pusher in Allen's scheme potentially, which means that they would likely try to get a D tackle in this draft. And there's a bunch that I like, Steven, in this draft.
Who are some of the D tackles do you like?
I mean, this is going to be a little bit shocker. I like Mason Graham. I don't love Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham's a good player. If he falls to 10, I think he's definitely worth it. But he's just got shorter arms, which I'm not a big fan of. His teammate, Kenneth Grant, you're looking at, a huge, I would call him a one technique, huge D end, I think, but he moves his feet well. Think of like what people wanted, the D tackle from Georgia that went to Philly, losing my mind right now. It's not Jalen Carter. It's, I can't think of him right now.
Jordan Davis.
Thank you. Yep. Think of what Jordan Davis didn't become, but I think Kenneth Grant can become that one. Derek Harmon is good from Oregon. He played at Michigan State before that, transferred to Oregon. I think he does kind of a complete thing. He could be one technique or 3 tech, but he's athletic. He can make plays, rushing the passer even. Tyleik Williams is a guy that had hype going into the year, didn't necessarily have the season that people wanted to, but he's a little bit more of a one technique that has to learn to be a better pass rusher. I like him a lot. Darius Alexander is going to be 25 from Toledo, so I'm not a huge fan of him. If you get him at
he's 25, I think, already now.
Yep, yeah. So if you get him at 72, I'd be okay. But you're not likely getting a good second contract out of him. But Alfred Collins is a big guy.
Alfred Collins, yes.
Yeah, you didn't get a chance to see him as much because they had some good D tackles in 2023 that went to the league, right, as we saw. So TJ Sanders is not bad. A later guy, I like CJ West out of Indiana. He's shorter, but he uses his leverage pretty well. He tested out pretty well. I like him.
Joshua Farmer.
Yeah. He's not bad. Florida State. Yeah, he's okay. I already mentioned Omar Norman Lott. Now he's an interesting one because he's not very good against the run, but he's a really, really good pass rushing D tackle. So, I talked earlier how that rushing the passer at D tackle is really important. The Bears had him in for a visit. So that's one I think that they like. Ty Hamilton is a guy I like as well. Or I'm sorry, Ty Robinson, Nebraska. And then let me think here. The last one I could mention, I guess. I don't know. I mean, Jamari Caldwell, Oregon. I think he's not bad. Utilizing some space too, but there's honestly, I would say probably 15 to 20 D tackles that could get drafted before the end of round 4. So we're looking at a really deep class that you don't necessarily have to spend pick 10 on. Just like running back, you don't have to spend pick 10 on it because you can get some good value later on.
So now brings us to the 10th pick right now. There have been some, a lot of, people projecting, of course, at this time of the year right now. So, from your perspective, do you think that the Bears will keep number 10, or would you think that they're open to trading down for a right price / player in the later round?
My number one strategy for Chicago is to trade down. Now, the problem is this class has very few blue chip players. So if you're another team, why would I trade up? So now here's the interesting thing, and I'm curious what your answer would be. Let's say you're at 10, Steven, and Ashton Jeanty, Will Campbell, Tyler Warner there. If you get a great offer from a team, would you be willing to trade down when those guys are on the board?
So Tyler Warner is there, right? You say?
Yep. Well, you can name either one of them are there. Like those are kind of the guys people have pegged for the Chicago. Will Campbell,
and Jeanty's gone, right?
Or
Jeanty's
Warren.
Gone?
Yeah. I mean, you could, or he's there. Would you trade down?
Oh wow, that's a tough one. If either one of them, if both of them are still there, or if one of them is still there, I would seriously consider taking, one of them. I've seen Jeanty's highlights, and he is very, very explosive player. And I know people made fun of the Lions when Ben Johnson was still there when they took Jahmyr Gibbs, and look how that turned out, right?
Right.
So I understand the argument for taking the running back because of Jeanty's production, what we witnessed with Saquon Barkley's renaissance with the Eagles this year. I could go either one of them. I'll probably stick to 10 because I think, in my opinion, I know it seems like a cop out, but I think the Bears could certainly use more type of players. I think Jeanty would be like a huge immediate impact guy who could be very productive right out from the start. With an offensive line that's been revamped, I think he could get easily 1,400 yards. On a good year. Tyler Warren, I don't know what to make of it because I still would like to see what Cole Kmet can do in that offense, with Ben Johnson. Or maybe I could be that's just a wishful thinking in my opinion. Sorry, Nick.
No.
What do you think?
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, you're right. And to me, that's the debate. But if one of those players is there, that's when you're going to see Seattle, Denver, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, whomever give you a good package, right? It's because if you trade down 10 spots, you get a third. I'd be like, But if you get if one of those, if Genty's there and you're like, Chicago trades down, they get a 1, 2, and a 3. I'm like,
or even next year's pick too. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Then that piques my interest. I like those players. I'm not saying that I don't, but it's a supply and demand world. If the supply is there, you're going to get an offer. So I would rather trade down more than anything. You mentioned Genty's highlights. I like his non-highlights, Stephen. Honestly, he does such a good job of balance. Of when you take on a defender, right? He's trying to tackle you, but you get smaller. You only take on half of him versus the whole defender. That's when you can actually bounce and get more yardage after contact. So he does that stuff all the time. And the one thing he doesn't get credit for, and I saw this more in his 2023 film, he's a very good receiver. And so in this offense, they're going to want more receiving out of their backs. And so I see some really good stuff there. So I'm out on Tyler Warren right now. I like Tyler Warren, the player, but we've seen in here, and I actually have a list here. We have, since 2009, here are the tight ends picked in the first 25 picks. Brock Bowers.
You remember seeing it on your timeline there too.
Yep. Yeah. Brock Bowers, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst, OJ Howard, Evan Ingram, Eric Ebron, Tyler Eifert, Jermaine Gresham, Brandon Pettigrew. Of that list, I would say Brock Bowers for sure is worth the pick that he was drafted at. Maybe one or two more you could say maybe, but the hit rate is really bad right now.
Right. Only Bowers is like the top standout, and you could probably put Hawkinson behind it. Evan Ingram, I think he kind of enjoyed his renaissance with Jacksonville a little bit, but the rest of it has certainly been a real disappointment. Kyle Pitts is in his fourth year, and we still don't know what to make of him, right?
Right, exactly. And the problem is like this whole debate is, premium positions, which we want, but also hit rate. Like if you draft Genty, the odds of him hitting are very high, in my opinion. It's north of 75% probably. But if you drafted a tight end, the hit rate's lower. You drafted Shamar Stewart, right? You're like, I don't know, 40, 35% of him becoming what you hope he could become. And so I think there's a combination of positional value versus potential what the hit rate could be. And that's that as well as how 39, 41, 72 are going to go in terms of how they're going to try to make this team complete with how their simulations are going to go for the draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be a very interesting scenario, certainly. My guest tonight is Nick Whalen, a high school football coach up in Wisconsin. He has been with us a couple of times before, joining us tonight on the Double 18 podcast. My other regular guest, Rishab Skiri, unfortunately, is stuck in traffic on his way home from Chicago. I think I just got a message. He said that he is heading home now, so we'll wait and see what happens. Obviously, he told me he was about 20-25 minutes away from the home area, so we'll carry on. You actually put up on your timeline today your probably a scenario, each scenario, which I think is very good. So Kelvin Banks has been kind of a somebody that's not really thought highly of as an offensive tackle, even though he is a left tackle,
right?
Which obviously the Bears will certainly have to think about the future of Braxton Jones as his contract expires. What do you like about Kelvin Banks, and are some of the issues that you with him correctable with new head coach, new offensive line coach? I forgot his first name, Dan Roshar.
Yep, Dan Rashard. I don't like his balance. That's one of my biggest things. His length and length is a big issue for me in terms of a lot of these tackles. People like Josh Simmons, he has 33-inch arms. Irsay has not long arms. Connerly's okay. Membu's okay. Banks is okay. Charles Grant actually has the longest arms that I like. He'll probably be at 72. He's a small school prospect out of William & Mary. But Banks' short arms show up, and then he over lunges, and then he kind of gets bad balance. But he's athletic.
I've seen highlights where he trips over and stuff like that.
Yeah. But he's got good wingspan. So like you want to look at like arm length, his wingspan, Stephen, is 90th percentile out of tackles, while Will Campbell's is 7th, which is small. So there's some things that I like, but you see a young guy who is athletic. His RAS score was still good, and you see potential. Now I don't know if you get the beast from Dane Brugler from the Athletic or not.
Oh yeah, it came out today. I think I'm gonna double check on that.
Yeah, no, it's good. Now some teams list Banks as a guard. That's why I put that in that tweet. He actually lists Banks as a guard and not as a tackle. So to me, if the Bears don't have Banks as a tackle, I don't think this is a scenario at all, because I wouldn't go interior O-line until probably round 2, if not round 3.
Yeah, I think with the offensive line completely, revamped, the need to get an offensive lineman probably kind of significantly dipped this off season right now, and probably not in the top 10 or even in the first round. Scenario 2 is the Will Johnson corner out of Michigan, who unfortunately his season was cut short because of the injuries and everything. And I think he finally fully recovered enough that now he's starting to work out privately with the prospective teams now. Certainly, taking a corner at 10 would be like I don't know. A lot of people would be like, which is understandable. Tell me about Will Johnson, and why do you have him at 10 here with scenario 2 here?
Yeah, so to me, like, this is a scenario where Genty's off the board, Will Campbell, Armand Membu's off the board, and let's say Tyler Warren's off the board. So you're either going to go D end, and you can't trade down. So it's like, what do we do? So to me, Will Johnson, there's some concerns about his overall speed, but he has good balance. His eyes and how he reads plays, his play recognition is awesome. I mean, he has multiple pick sixes, makes great plays on the ball, which has honestly been an issue. I mean, Jalen Johnson, it took him 3 years before he had good ball skills. Tyreek Stevenson is okay there, but Tyreek Stevenson struggles with separation. And I struggle, Stephen, with Bears fans trashing Braxton Jones every chance that they get, and we have to get a left tackle. And yet they stick up for Tyreek Stevenson, who, not just talking about the play, his overall 2 years have not been starter worthy, and he's a late second round pick. So I don't know why we have to have him as a starter and no competition when any pick that we pick, even if it's a running back, DeAndre Swift, okay, he has to go to backup. But like, we're going to lose somebody to a backup role. And I don't think Tyreek Stevenson is, you can't bring in competition, because I don't think that he's earned a guaranteed starting spot. And Will Johnson's super talented and worthy of the 10th pick.
You got Tyreek Williams and Jonas Havayanea, who is a guard who I believe that the Bears are meeting or already met out there.
Big fan of him. Big fan of him.
Even though you got a D on the PFF simulator, but he's going to be the guard, right, Jonah?
Yeah, I have him as an interior O lineman. He has good zone experience and he's powerful. So to me, those are two things, because Ben Johnson runs zone but also gap scheme. So in terms of maybe the next lineman to take over, if they don't extend Joe Thuney, which they haven't done yet, that could be a possibility, or to fill in for Jonah Jackson or whomever. I think he'd be a great prospect to develop. Also on that list too is I have one I want to highlight in terms of, if they don't go running back early, Jordan James is a guy that I like. Now, PFF doesn't like him here, but Jordan James is a guy I think that has a very high floor in terms of he can run zone and gap scheme. He has good balance, makes good decisions. Think of like maybe a better version of Khalil Herbert is kind of what I see Jordan James.
Okay. Scenario 3, as we were discussing earlier, you have Mike Green being taken here at 10, Trey Amos the corner, and then Cam Scatterable. Tell me about Cam Scatterable, and why do you think he would be a good fit with the Chicago Bears?
I mean, that's just a guy that I think he has so much determination and wants yards. Like, back in the day, Bear fans, if you want to remember, like Adrian Peterson running against us, it was like, man, this guy just wants it more than anyone else on the field. And that's what he does all the time. He has really good contact balance. He's short, just like Genty, short, so low center of gravity. Yeah. But his balance lets him get more yards and his toughness. It's pretty awesome. He has really good short area quickness and cutting ability, but his long speed isn't there, which honestly, I would rather have short quickness versus long speed. The other thing that Cam Scatterbo doesn't get good credit for, he's a really good pass catcher. And so you put all that stuff together, you're not going to get the long speed, the 50, 60, 70-yard touchdowns, but you're going to move the chains with this type of guy, which to me, that's kind of the David Montgomery type in this two kind of running back scheme that Ben Johnson liked out of Detroit.
And you have Charles Grant and Jamari Caldwell that you were mentioning earlier here, 3rd and 4th round pick. That's a pretty good value, in my opinion, there.
Yeah, I was really excited about that draft, and Trey Amos. That's my competition for Stevenson. So that was one that I really, really liked.
And then finally, the scenario for big trade down. You had the chart to trade down with Los Angeles at 10 for 22. You got a pretty good haul here. You got Malachi Starks, the safety of Georgia. Obviously, the safety is a huge need. Maybe not that early, maybe at 10, but this has to be a pretty good spot to take Starks at 22, right?
Yeah, to me, I think if they do a big trade down like this, then they're just going to look at who's the best player available. And Starks is a complete safety. You don't want him to, he's not going to win any 40-yard dash contests, but he's in great positions all the time. I mean, you could put him in the box. You could put him deep. He's good with zones. He's good with recognition. He has good ball skills. So to me, and the thing that I think Bears fans are missing out on, Stephen, is Jaquan Brisker missed 15 games last year, and he has never had a complete season in Chicago. And again, while we root for him, he's a free agent after the year. So is Kevin Byard. So is Jonathan Owens. So is Elijah Hicks. They don't have any safety under contract for 2026 right now. So this is something where you might have to get two guys, and that's if everyone doesn't come back. Let's say you re-sign one of them, you still need another safety. So I think this is a developmental or even a need if Brisker can't be healthy.
Do you like Starks over South Carolina's Nick Emmanwori better?
Yeah, I do. Emmanwori, I mean, I think he tested better than he shows on the field. He's obviously bigger, but he's more of a strong safety. And to me, in today's NFL, I'd rather have more coverage safeties than, in the box, linebackers, basically.
Right. And Emmanwori certainly looks like a linebacker,
he's a big dude.
25. Yeah, exactly. And then the scenario 5, Ashton Jeanty here at 10. Obviously, Jeanty, if he's available at 10, I think a lot of people will be excited about it. But it seems as though, I'm kind of accepted the fact that maybe Las Vegas at 6 will be the first, where he probably would end up going. Is that the kind of a scenario that I think a lot of the Bears fans would have to kind of like have to tell themselves that Jeanty at 10 would be kind of like a pipe dream right now?
Right now, it looks like he's not going to fall. I mean, between, I think, Jacksonville, the Raiders.
New Orleans could also go too there. Right?
New Orleans, but Dallas could trade up. They could jump Chicago for him. So to me, I mean, that's why I look for all the scenarios. I love Jeanty's game. As I said, he's a very complete player. He's worth the 10th pick. But I feel like you have to think of other scenarios because if he's that good, and this is a down class, other teams are going to want to draft him too.
Yeah. And then you had Landon Collins, and then you were talking about Alfred Collins here. This is a very good draft overall. You still have the filling the need for corner, and then the edge rusher, and then the interior lineman. And then you have two guards as a backup to Jackson and Tooney as well.
Yep, those are both. I mean, again, just if people are taking notes, both Colby and Gray are guys that are good with outside zone scheme. So if this is the new direction of the Bears, these are like those developmental guys. You keep them for 2 or 3 years, and then maybe they could get in the starting lineup.
My guest tonight is Nick Whalen, the high school football coach from Wisconsin. He's been a guest with us previous several times. My regularly scheduled guest, Rishab Skiri, unfortunately, is off. Well, not off, but he is stuck in traffic on his way home. We don't know if he's able to join us, but we're hoping that maybe, if not tonight, will be joining us in our later scheduled time. So let's kind of look at the top 9 teams that are ahead of the Chicago Bears. You and I could probably do some. Let me pull up the. Let's see. Some simulator right now, because obviously the Bears are picking. There's 9 teams right now that is picking ahead of the Chicago Bears right now. So number 1, I think it's kind of safe to say, Nick. It's pretty much Cam Ward at this point, right?
Yeah, well, considering he is not going to take a visit with the Giants, right? I think he's guaranteed to go to Tennessee right now.
Mm-hmm. So right now we're just running through this pretty quick clock right here. So Cam Ward, number 2, Cleveland. Obviously, I think Deshaun Watson era is pretty much over at this point. I know I forgot the owner's name. Jesus Christ, Jimmy Haslam, the guy who kind of was a huge influence on that deal, kind of slammed the door on it. Obviously, his Achilles injury is going to probably make it more and more difficult for him to come back, unfortunately. Right. Here they have Travis Hunter on this simulator, but would you take Shedeur Sanders, or would you just say, you know what, we'll go with Travis Hunter, or somebody else that you like for Cleveland in your opinion?
I think they have to go Travis Hunter. I mean, Abdul Carter has some merit here as well, but they have needs at receiver and at corner. So really, Travis Hunter fits both of those bills, depending on how much they play both ways. But I'm lower on Shedeur Sanders. I'm not trying to say that he's bad, but I don't think that he's worth picking over Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter here. From what I've been hearing, they're in on the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. But the Deshaun Watson trade has just crumbled that entire team. So they're gonna have to rebuild this whole thing. And I think trying to save your job by drafting Sanders isn't going to be the path to do that.
Okay, number 3, they had Mason Graham here. Mason Graham, Shedeur Sanders, or Travis Hunter. If they're all 3 of them are still here, who's the pick for G-Man?
I would pick Abdul Carter there. I think it's either Abdul Carter or Shedeur Sanders, maybe. Mason Graham, I mean, there's some merit there. I mean, because they do have 2 DNs right now in terms of Brian Burns and Keyshawn Thibodeau there. Yeah. But he hasn't really lived up to the billing. Abdul Carter is the best player. I mean, having Mason Graham next to Dexter Lawrence and those 2 would be amazing. I get it.
Yeah.
But I don't think Mason Graham is up to the same level of talent as an Abdul Carter. And so at this point, you pick BPA and you go from there. They signed 2 quarterbacks. So to me, drafting Sanders and signing those 2 doesn't make a ton of sense. I would wait till later, maybe round 2, you get Jackson Dart or get Jalen Milroe.
Okay. So New England taking Abdul Carter here at 4, which obviously Mike Vrabel will be a very, very happy man. But I couldn't help but think that, Drake May having a rookie season, which, he wasn't as beat up as bad as, Caleb was. But, if nothing crumbles a young quarterback's confidence like a poor pass.
Yep.
Excuse me. Poor pass protection. So, with Will Campbell and Ahmad Membu still there, I could see one of them being taken here at New England at number 4. How do you see this one? And if you had to pick one for New England, Will Campbell or Ahmad Membu, who do you like, as a first offensive tackle?
Well, I would go Campbell for them because they have needs on the interior and at tackle. So I think, a lot of places have Will Campbell as the top lineman. I like Membu a little bit more, but I'm not going to fault anybody. Campbell's super athletic, y'all. I mean, his RAS is up there. He just has small hands, small arms, small wingspan. I'm just not a big fan of that, but still a good player. So I think they're the team that would try him at tackle. If it doesn't work, kick him inside and just have a really good player. I think Mike Vrabel is more of the we're going to get really good players type of camp versus we're going to shoot for high potential guys all the time.
Mm-hmm. As a football coach, what do you hear when you hear stuff about Will Campbell's arm length and everything? Is that, do you find that comical, or do you find that there is a legit concern with stuff like that?
To me, it's a legit concern. I mean, to me, I think it's it should actually have more weight than some people are giving it, because some people are like, well, it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, really, there's always a O-line and D-line, there's a meeting, right? At some point, they have to make contact. Yeah. Whoever makes contact first has better odds of winning that battle. And, you look at the Eagles tackles, right? Everyone wants to compare it to the Eagles now, right? They won it. Both of their tackles have 35 plus inch arm length. They keep defenders at bay. And so this doesn't mean Will Campbell can't be successful. It's just reducing the odds of him being successful every time. And we've seen him struggle against a Landon Jackson, who has long arms. He does well against guys that don't have a plan, but that's in college. And you look through all of the tackles in the NFL, Steven, they have the average is 34 plus inch arm length. Yeah. The reason is because it matters to teams.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Here, Jacksonville at 5, they have Tyler Warren going there. Is Tyler Warren at 5? Is that a reach, or do you feel like if somebody like Mason Graham or Ahmad Membu is still at number 5, one of them would be a more of a fit, in your opinion?
Yeah, I like Mason Graham there more than Tyler Warren, but also you have to think you have a new head coach there, Liam Cohen. He's an offensive guy. Maybe he wants to have a Tyler Warren to pair with a Brian Thomas to help Trevor Lawrence. I actually don't.
He just lost Evan Ingram too. Yeah.
Yep. And actually, I don't mind your Membu idea, but I feel like they would go either Weapon or Mason Graham.
Okay. And here, number 6, as we were discussing earlier, Ashton Jeanty goes to Vegas. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Shedeur Sanders is at 7, goes to the Jets. I know somebody was talking about Jackson Dart at number 7 for, at New York, which was a real stretch here. In my opinion, I think Shedeur Sanders at 7 seems like I don't know. It doesn't fit well. Maybe Ahmad Membu, since they need an offensive lineman there. You wouldn't take Sanders at 7 if you're the Jets, right?
No, I would not. I mean, especially with Membu on the board, I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of no matter what quarterback, if they're going to go quarterback in the second round or in 2026, you're getting your 2 bookends, because they got Olu Fashanu last year. So getting the O-line, as we know in Chicago, getting the O-line set is really going to help out a young quarterback, and without it's really going to hurt it. So this is helping Justin Fields' odds, and if they don't like him, then they can get a rookie next year.
Okay. Carolina taking Teodoro McMillan here at Arizona. Do you like this pick, or do you feel like somebody like an edge rusher, like Shamar Stewart, Jalen Walker, somebody like that? What do you think?
I like all these ideas for Carolina, honestly. I mean, I like them going D end. I like them going Ted McMillan. I also could see them being a Tyler Warren, in terms of helping out Bryce Young. So they're a little bit of a wild card for me, because I don't know where, again, their coach has been there for a year, so he's got a feel for those players. It's tough to kind of place where they're going to go. I don't know. There's a lot of good places that they go. Ted McMillan, I think, is kind of getting knocked down more than he should. I think he's a fantastic prospect.
Mm-hmm. And here they have Saints taking Jahdae Barron, another corner. One of your mock draft scenario had Will Johnson for the Bears. Johnson versus Barron, who's a better corner in your opinion?
I prefer Johnson just because Barron's shorter. Think of Barron as like he can be a slot, but he also can play outside like a I don't know, like a shorter guy like a Stephon Gilmore is like the best. And Stephon Gilmore was great, but I would prefer a taller corner with some length. Will Johnson's length isn't amazing, but to me, like, again, if you're going to have a top 10 pick, I don't want to have limitations and like you're already like, well, he'll be a slot, and if not, he could play outside some. I want to have an outside corner, like premium positions is where you should go.
All right, so here at the Bears at number 10, running back, DL, safety are the needs that they're mentioning. Let me make it a little smaller so that it would fit as to what kind of players that they have here. Okay, let me squeeze down a little bit more here. Here we have Will Campbell, Malachi Starks, Jihad Campbell, Ahmad Membu, Mike Green, Will Johnson. Wow, there's a pretty good list of players that are listed here. Mm-hmm. Who would you like to take here?
So to me, this is a fantastic opportunity to trade down. There you have, Miami just lost their left tackle. You've got plenty of teams, I think, Seattle, who would trade up for O-line. And so I would trade down with one of them that want to take one of these tackles. Not that I don't think these tackles are bad. I just think that you could get a good dividend back and also get another player later in the first. So I would do the trade back. I don't know who's interested, but that would be my preference here. You're muted, Steven.
Excuse me. Yeah, I apologize there. I don't know if this is a like a traditional PFF, which allows us to make a trade by search, but you're obviously your first intuition would be to trade down.
Yep.
Okay. But if there are no trade downs, who would you pick? Would you take Will Campbell, or you're out on his because of his measurables?
Man, and see, this is the tough part, because if we went back to Ryan Poles, Ryan Poles likes tackles with length, right? We saw this with, Krono Magaji has some of the longest arms in the NFL. Braxton Jones has long arms. Darnell Wrights aren't terribly long, but they're not super short. But as I mentioned, Ben Johnson brought in wide zone athletic linemen, right? Which I think Will Campbell will be good at, because he's a really good athlete. So we're in a really big battle here, Steven, in terms of, okay, is Ben Johnson going to get his athletic guy at left tackle, or is it going to be, does Ryan Poles want to keep that length? And that's a big thing for him. So I don't know which of those arguments are going to be there. The safe pick would be to go Membu. He's a little bit longer, a little bit less athletic. Can he play left tackle? We'll see. Because I don't know if they like any of those guys for a left tackle. I would pick Mike Green. I think that's the safest pick.
Okay. I hear you.
That's not popular though. Bears fans would see that.
I understand. Membu. I know Kyle Long said that he tweeted maybe last week or a little bit earlier his transition from right to left or something like that kind of garnered a lot of attention. Do you think Membu has that potential, or are we just overhyping Membu, or just maybe buying too much out of what Kyle Long's experience? Because obviously there are two different players.
Yeah. No, I definitely think he can switch. It's a stance thing. Things are different. But here's the other part too, is that I think that left tackle used to be the position on the O-line, right?
Yeah.
And that's changed. And right tackles actually, I think, on average, make more money than left tackles now when you take them in total. And the reason I think that that's changed is because when you're in shotgun, the quarterback's shoulders are square to the line of scrimmage, right?
Okay, yeah.
And left tackle was always the premium, because it would be the blind side, right? They'd be looking, and then if this is your left tackle, like, man, he can't see me over there.
This side.
Right. But now that they're square, and DNs, some of the good DNs, they would put on against the right tackles. Like, these right tackles are terrible. We can just beat them easier than trying to battle the left tackles. So they've had to balance it out a lot more, and there's really not a blind side. So to me, I think it's a lot more evened out than people want to actually give credit for. So I don't think it's as big of a task, or as they're going to face. You're facing Myles Garrett every week. You know what I mean? Like some of those good rushers, TJ Watt, Khalil Mack, Montez Sweat, those guys are playing against right tackles. They're not playing against your left tackle. So I think Membu can make the switch, and I think it's a little bit overhyped right now in terms of right and left tackle.
Okay. So moving, like, say, Darnell right from right to left, let's say if Jones leaves via free agency, would be like a total nonsensical move in your opinion, right?
Yeah, I think that they could do it if they wanted to. But I'd keep him at right, but I think you could.
Okay. That's understandable. A couple more minutes with our guest, Nick Whalen from the who is a head coach, high school football head coach up in Wisconsin, joining us to talk about the NFL draft.
Just an assistant coach, trying to get a head coaching job, but just an assistant.
Oh, I apologize, assistant head coach.
No, you're okay.
So, you just mentioned about your, assistant head coach. From going from assistant to, becoming like a head coach, obviously that's like the next big step, not just in high school, but in college, also in the professional ranks as well, trying to be that, take that next big step or hurdle. And there are a lot of coaches who succeed, and a lot of times, unfortunately, coaches, unfortunately, do not make it. From your experience, Nick, what separates the guy who can be like a head coach versus the guy who are probably say, I think he's going to thrive, or he's better off being a coordinator per se.
Yeah. It's a different job because you're coaching coaches, right? You're organizing people. So to me, if you're just an offensive, defensive coordinator, you're just worrying about those assistants, those players on that side of the ball. But you have to have such a different view of everything.
Right.
You have to be really good with your time. You got to be organized, time management. You're dealing with media a lot more. You're dealing with ownerships. As a coordinator, you kind of get off in your own small little bubble. And so,
right.
I think the organization, also the not being afraid to, hey, I'm okay delegating some of this to this guy, but also you have to have those meetings so that you trust what they're going to do. It can just be a lot on some people's plates. I'm pretty impressed with what Ben Johnson has said so far.
Yeah.
It feels like he's not afraid of confrontation. He's not afraid of doing the tough work, which is needed. And he just doesn't say, like trendy stuff. Like I think he means, like he was talking about, EPA, which is very true because sacks matter a ton and they kill drives, and it shows you your points expected is different if you take a sack on a drive versus not. And so trying to get those things in place to put, and again, it's just like the draft, just what we're doing here, Stephen. We're always taking estimations, calculations in terms of risks to score more points. This player's going to hit. What's the best way to build a team? All those things. And so Ben Johnson's smart. He's involved. I think he was he majored in math or science somewhere in there. And so
computer science, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. Computer science. So he gets, you know what I mean? I think thinking at a different level than a lot of other coaches. And to me, that gives me comfort as a Bears fan. Finally, as a head coach, I think that is very intelligent to manage coaches, manage players, and, call the right plays.
Now, as somebody who is, a football fan and somebody who wants to kind of graduate or move on from just casual watching football, whether it's college football on Saturday and also on pro football on Sundays, and just kind of learn the, more about an intricacy of the game, the formations, and even just learn the, the scouting aspect of it. Nick, what would you recommend? For example, somebody like me, I know we had this conversation maybe in the past as well, but for somebody like me to kind of further delve into, not just casual watching football and, just cheering on, first downs or touchdowns, but something else that, help an average football fan like me to become a little more knowledgeable moving forward.
Well, actually, I think the easiest way to do this is when you watch plays, and again, all 22 film is better than, TV copy film, and, you go through the list. But every play that you watch, I would watch the play, then I'd stop, I would go back, then I'd watch it in slow motion. And a lot of people watch the ball, right? Like, oh, the ball goes here, the ball goes there. But I'm watching, okay, why did this person score? Okay, so how was the defensive flow here, right? How did this block work, right? All those types of things. So to me, when you watch plays in terms of a coach, you're watching the play 5 times, 8 times, forward, back, forward, back. Okay, up. And so I was you'd mentioned pre-recording Phil, right? So I was on a stream with him. I might have been with you actually too, where we were talking about Karamagaji's play against Minnesota. We were watching and he had a false start or a false step. And so a false step is when his feet, he doesn't gain depth with that, and he didn't gain depth, and the guy turned the corner on him. So one small thing like that made the difference between a successful block and not successful. But watching plays 5 to 8 times, you'll see all those small things. And the more that you study those small things, the more you're going to understand the, kind of more cerebral look at a play versus just a touchdown or an interception or incomplete pass.
Analytics has become a huge thing in sports nowadays. It kind of originated with the the Moneyball and baseball side, but football is also becoming very analytical driven. As a coach, do you rely on analytics, and if so, how do you kind of incorporate analytics into your work, and make sure that you're not too analytical, but you also have to focus on interacting with the players and helping them develop in a traditional way?
Yeah, at my level in high school, I don't do a ton of analytics, just because I think things change so much opponent to opponent, different offenses versus different defensive schemes, and a lot of it is like, do offenses, are they right or left-handed? That's actually something that people don't really realize. A lot of teams run to the right a lot more than the left, just how it is. Or you run to the field side, that's the wide side of the field, versus the boundary, which is the short side of the field. Like, people will have tendencies. So those analytics I look at, or let's say you have a really bad corner. Okay. It's easier to put him on the short side of the field, the boundary, because it's he's not in as much space. He can mess up less, you'd think of. So like those small things I look at, but in terms of kind of the deep dives that you see in the NFL, in terms of like, how does motion dictate, less rotation for this defense, and you get another step, like that type of stuff I don't do analytically, but film wise I watch, because you can see guys that don't want to tackle, guys that don't get enough depth here or there, and things you can take advantage of.
Let's look at the position wise, from the Bears perspective. How would you rank the position of need for the Bears right now? Running back, defensive lineman, edge, interior, of course, linebacker, safety, in that order, or am I missing something here?
In terms of, are you going to say 2025 need, or you just think like
2025 need right now?
To me, it's running back, safety, corner, and then D line. Just because, I mean, I don't know the health of Brisker. I don't know if Stevenson's going to step up. The thing with like Braxton Jones, he's played at least average or above average left tackle play when healthy. So and the insurance policy on him is Karamagaji, who I feel like people were so critical of a rookie who didn't get a training camp, who got thrown in. I mean, y'all, when he played Minnesota, he got 0 reps with the first team, 0 that week, because it was just last second Braxton couldn't play. Like, imagine going to your job and they didn't train you on anything, and you're like, well, the first day's not going to go well. You know what I mean? And it's in front of a good defense, and Brian Flores and that defense. So to me, like, left tackle is less on the list for this year, unless they don't think Braxton can get healthy and recover well.
Right. Let's see. What player would you absolutely be angry if the Bears ended up picking? Give me a couple of names. Like, you'd be, I don't know, not throwing things at TV, but you'd be like hussing or just like shaking your head. What players would you be like, no?
I actually I made this post on Twitter. If they went quarterback at 10, I would be mad. And basically, if they went inside linebacker, like I like Jihad Campbell, and I understand that it could be a fit for like 2026 and beyond, but drafting him at 10 this year doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not a fan of Omarion Hampton if Gentry's gone. I'm not a fan of Shamar Stewart, but I understand the position. So like I wouldn't be happy. I would just be like, okay. And then I have a bunch
What about
of
Josh Simmons? Would you be like no because of his size or just patella injuries and everything?
I think it's a lot of it, honestly, Stephen. Like he started at San Diego State, and he hasn't played a lot at Ohio State at a high level at Ohio State, and it's an injury that if people follow what Mason West on Twitter, he's unsure recovering from patella tendon in terms of being at the same level. Now he looked good at his pro day, I'll give him that, but he has 33-inch arms, which aren't long, as we all know. He hasn't played at a high level at the Big Ten. He is coming off a serious injury.
Yeah.
10 seems early for me. Now,
or already, but well, maybe not a 10, but maybe like trade down. Would that still make sense? Or
maybe after 20, but the part that I get to is how much better are these guys than Braxton Jones? And I know that he's a free agent.
Yeah.
But also like it's tough for me to maybe you can answer this for me. What's worth more, $22 million per year or the 10th overall pick? In terms of value, just pure value.
Well, if I'm making 22, I would take 22 million for sure. You know?
Yeah.
Boy, but
because like to me, it's like, okay, like let's say they take any of the tackles, name any of them that you want at 10.
Right.
So it's that player versus Braxton, or that player plus 22 million in cap space versus Braxton Jones, and you could put the 10th pick and it could be anyone you want. D-end, Tyler Warren, Ashton Genty. And so I don't think people weigh that enough. I'm like, well, are they that much better than Braxton? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, at least Braxton has actually played 3 years in the league, even though. So that should at least count for something there as well, for sure. Let me see here. Let me think about here. If Shadir Sanders somehow drops, how far do you think he's going to drop, though?
21's the latest I think he can drop because Pittsburgh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could see Pittsburgh just drafting him and just telling Aaron Rodgers to pound sand. I mean, like,
right. Yeah.
Going through that spectacle, then they have a first round rookie, kind of like the Kenny Pickett, right? He's their next Kenny Pickett, and they can see kind of if they can make it work. But they have DK Metcalf this time and Pickens, so he has better receivers than Pickett had. So
if Shadir is at 10, and if somebody come calling, you would do the deal, right? If you're the Bears, you're like, because obviously you're not taking Sanders,
no,
of course, but if somebody like Pittsburgh wants to move up badly, you would take the call, right? Yeah,
100%. And again, like because trading down is my favorite thing because you trade down to 21, and then you could go, safety, D end that might be a little more risky, or D tackle, or whatever else. Because to me, you're mitigating the risk because you're going to get more day 2 picks. And so it doesn't matter to me because it's about improving the team overall. And when you can get more shots at getting a player, because again, all these guys aren't going to hit, y'all. It's going to be 50, 40, 50%, chance that they're going to hit. So the more chances I get, I'm going to take.
Right. It's kind of like the same value as when the Bears traded up to get Justin Fields 4 years ago. So you probably have to maybe give up next year's number 1.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I would say either a 1, 2, and a 3, 1, 2, and a 4 this year, which a lot of teams don't like to do.
Right.
Or you're going to get a future 1, a future 2 mixed in there somehow.
Okay.
I mean, at 21 and a future 1, I think should be basically just enough to come up. Or you're going to get a 2 this year and a 2 next year, something like that.
Okay. I would do that in a heartbeat too. If somebody wants to move up that badly.
Yep.
Walter Nolan. What do you think of Walter Nolan?
Man,
he's
one of the more.
He's been all over the place, like 7 schools, 7 straight years. Like, really?
I mean, he's super polarizing. Like he's the guy that's I think of him as more of a 3 technique type of guy.
Yeah.
Because he's a little smaller. I mean, he's 300 pounds, but he's productive when he's out there.
Yes.
I mean, he had 6.5 sacks this last year. He had 14.5 tackles for loss. Like that's good. But the thing, I'm hearing whispers of character concerns, and that's why he's falling. Because like initially he was a guy that's like, okay, he's going to go in the teens. And now you see him falling to the second round in a lot of simulations, just like James Pierce Jr. And so, when these whisper things are being reciprocated with a lot of mock drafts, you're kind of getting that one. But he flashes really well in terms of good plays. Like if you only look at the highlights, Walter Nolan would be up there. But when you look at like everything, you're like, you want to see more consistency with technique and play. And so when you add that into the character things, that's when he kind of falls down, and you put Kenneth Grant, you put Derek Harmon, some of these other D tackles above him.
Yeah, character concerns obviously is a big thing. I know Poles isn't the kind of guy that would, risk it. Obviously, Jalen Carter, they passed on him 2 years ago, but obviously that team was, pretty. I don't think we're in a good position to handle a guy like Jalen Carter versus the Philadelphia Eagles, which coming off a Super Bowl year and everything. So
something interesting about that, Stephen, is that so 2 years ago, we were watching videos, tons of articles about this Jalen Carter, all of his stuff. The stuff that we're getting from Walter Nolan or James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green, it's just rumors. Like we're not reading articles or watching the police footage of anything.
Right. With Carter, that was like a legit thing. It happened in real time, and he looked absolutely horrendous at a workout, on the same week. That
I forgot about the workout. Yeah, same thing. So like to me, when you look at all the I don't know whether to believe the character stuff is real or not, because we're not seeing, the same stuff we saw with Carter. But the other part too that is interesting is, so with Carter and that whole thing, that was with Eberflus, right?
Yeah. That was there. Absolutely.
And now I don't know how Ben Johnson feels about that stuff. I don't know if he likes taking those risks, maybe more than Poles, maybe, and he'll have more of a pull. So maybe he'll be like, hey, I want to have James Pierce Jr. because I think that he can make a huge difference on our team, when Poles might not wanted that as much before. You have a different mix now. Or Dennis Allen. Maybe Dennis Allen's like, hey, I can fix this stuff. When Flus said maybe he couldn't.
Right. Speaking of the offense, front office dynamics, obviously Ben Johnson's addition of Ben Johnson seems to have a lot of a huge impact on what Ryan Poles does. Obviously, with the finally fixing the interior offensive line is something that is being brought up there. Do you feel like sometimes, with the coach versus the GM, I want more control versus that's and that, kind of like John Gruden, or, as a Bears fan, we already went through that with Dave Wanstead running out, Bill Tobin, and just completely, went landslide. Certainly don't want that happening with Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles working together. Do you feel like Ben Johnson is having a lot of an impact that or maybe too much impact on the personnel decisions?
I feel like, if you zoom out and you're GM, you want to talk with Dennis Allen and with Ben Johnson, like, hey, what kind of guys do you want? Because what we had before, these guys might not fit what you want.
Exactly.
And Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen are like, hey, I want to have certain types of guys to play. You're talking about safety. What kind of safeties does Dennis Allen want? What kind of DNs does he want? And we already saw they signed Dio Odingbo, which that might not be a guy that Brian Poles would sign before. So to me, I think that they have to work together right now. It looks like it's been efficiently in terms of working together. But I feel like both sides want to make that happen. If you're not doing that, I feel like you're really, really bad organization. And from, again, it's early on, but everything that we're hearing, they're working together because you're getting more O-line talent. This is the type of guys that you want. Because one thing I found that is probably the most fascinating from what Ben Johnson has said, he's always wanting intelligent football players. He's not like the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, the whatever.
Right.
He's like, I want guys that can think, and he's challenging them. Like the quarterback test he just talked about with Caleb Williams. It's constantly up here, and the more you can be ready for anything up here, the more the game slows down on game day.
Yeah. I know a lot of rumor went out before, the coaching hiring process that Ben Johnson wanted to bring in his own guys or something like that, which was debunked.
GM,
which was debunked. And thankfully that both guys are working together very, very nicely. Now, obviously, the draft is another hurdle that they both must overcome, and then the training camps and the regular season. Do you think the Bears are ready to win now? And if so, how many wins do you think realistically can the Bears win? Like 10 the floor, in your opinion? 10 at least?
So one, your question of win now, the interesting thing for me is you get a new coaches, right?
Yeah.
But Poles is here, so he already had a pulse on the talent, like who was brought in. And they brought in 2 32-year-olds, Grady Jarrett and Joe Tooney. It's like, it's not a rebuild. This is
no.
We're loading up. And so to me, part of that with me, Steven, is like, I think, and he said this before, is like, we're trying to win right now. Is at 10. So at 10, if they went left tackle, they might be better than Braxton Jones. They might not be. People are like, get that one and just put in competition. You bring in 2 of your biggest investments have been 32-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then your first 10th pick, you want to be a competition with another guy who's been solid? Or do you bring in a likely upgrade at running back, a likely upgrade at corner, another pass rusher who can mix in because they rotate a lot? To me, those make a lot more sense to me if bringing 2 32-year-olds in. If they didn't do that and they brought in a bunch of young guys and they got rid of Kevin Byard and they got rid of like older guys, I'd be like, okay, yeah, we're going to reset this. We're going to take some time. I think they want to win now. Now, the one issue is how much, this is year to year is different, but the strength of the schedule for the NFC North is terrible. Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota, they all have the 23rd or hardest strength of schedules right now. Again, based off of how teams did in 2024. That changes. Right. They play the NFC East and I think the AFC North. So 2 really good divisions. So I think the wins are going to be a lot less just in general for the divisions, just because it's going to be harder. To me, I think the floor is probably 8 wins. That's when everything goes terrible. And people listening, like, the wins actually should have been 7 for Chicago this last year. They should have beaten Washington. They should have beaten Green Bay both times. So it was really 7. So really, I would say the floor, again, everything bad happens, is 8 wins. Realistic, I think, is probably 9 to 11 wins is probably the realistic scenario for me.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a start.
Well, and also, like, Mike Clay is a guy with ESPN, because my other job, I write for fantasy stuff, and I followed him for years. We actually follow each other. He's a really smart guy, ESPN. He does an interesting thing where he grades every team 1 to 32 by position. So, like, okay, how good are your quarterbacks? And he does that. And then you add them all together and you average them. And I think Chicago is the 10th best team in the league. And just by pure talent. Now, again, and then people are like, well, they got to add everything else. Coaching, I would say right now they're probably above average in coaching. And then that's without even adding the 10th pick, 39 and 40, which the average team doesn't have that draft capital. So you add that together, I think 9 to 11 seems to make sense for a team that's probably a top 10 talented team.
Yeah, well, there's certainly ascending. Coaching change alone is going to make a huge difference. Having to listen and deal with Matt Eberflus's nonsense and lack of accountability, which drove me crazy. And I think a lot of people also listened to him talk, post game shows, just basically torched him, because it seemed like he never took accountability for himself, especially, very, very seriously. So, it's a night and day, and I hope that the players will respond. Because they often complain about being not coached hard enough and wanted to be coached. So, they got their wish now. Now, we're going to find out how legit these players, how real they are. And, if this is just basically guys, not taking their own accountability very, very seriously. And if that's who you are, Ben Johnson is going to run you out of town very, very quickly because, he's the new guy and new philosophy. And if you don't fit, you're out basically, whether you like it or not. So, Nick, thank you very much for your time tonight. Unfortunately, Rishab probably is slowly making his way home, but I don't want to keep you up too late at night. I know it's 10:30 here in the East Coast, 9:30 over there as well. Do you teach, or do you basically kind of focus on being an assistant coach during school years?
I'm a school counselor. Is my day job.
Oh, okay. Do you enjoy that work?
It's rewarding because as a male in a female field and also a coach, I get a different platform to reach out to kind of help a lot of kids. And that's honestly like, as people know in education, you're not in it for the money. You're in it to kind of create change for youth. And I feel like it's a really good opportunity. And I get that every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nick, great work. Thank you very much for, what you do, teaching young men on the field, and then also, working with young people, deal with their personal problems, whatever it might be. I know it's not easy being a teenager in this world now. They get a lot of flack, unfortunately, fair or not, but certainly whatever that they have to deal with, school, homes, and everything. You're the person that you have to sit there and listen carefully, and obviously it's not an easy thing to do, but you're a wonderful person, and we love having you here. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy your work, and look forward to having you on again. Maybe we'll have you next month, and we'll probably talk more about the post draft and see what the Chicago Bears and the rest of the league looks like. And thanks for your time tonight, and look forward to having you on once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you so much. And for those who are watching, I want to apologize. I've been dealing with the coughing for the last couple of weeks, and starting to get better. But there's just one of those moments where I just get really, really worked up. And Rishab unfortunately could not make it tonight. I'll text him and let him know we're sorry you couldn't make it, but we hope to have you on at some other point next time with you as well to make it up for it. This week, Friday, I had Jacob Infante scheduled, but Jacob has another commitment, so we're going to do it at Saturday, as is by request, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. So we'll have Jacob. I met him at the Indianapolis Combine along with his family there, so we're going to catch up on that, and we're going to delve a little bit more into the NFL draft. Thank you very much for joining us, folks, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Double 18 Podcast Live Stream Edition. Good night, everybody.